Alright, my babies. And we're back with today's video. Today's video, yeah, man. Uh, Maybe some updates. Alright, so signed with a UI/UX designer and a marketing slash strategist planning. I'm not sure how real this is for me. I made the decision to split the work because that guy actually can do both jobs. In my head, what made sense was like a certain bias that might come from him being very like opinionated given his skills. So I decided to go with like the design happening on the other side, which is basically like on another side. But anyways, this is very much real and officially we're on a timeline. I'm super psyched because like their work will allow me to kind of like finish my work. But as of the current moment, I don't really know what to do except to kind of like up my skills and like prepare. Reminds me of a video I once did. Just like we're never ready but always prepared. So in a way, whatever they give me right now, I can start working on. But from now till then, what do I work on? And that's kind of like what's going on right now. So feeling a bit calm and zen, like a decision has been made, and that kind of like just that sense of like timelines is really making me feel a bit stoic. I shouldn't eat because you guys will hear basically the cracking or something. Of course, it's beautiful because like today's video is fear is basically a bad image of the future. And why not talk about that? Because this is the perfect timing for this video. I don't know if like it does feel surreal for me. Like this is today's video, and this is where I stopped yesterday. Right? Yesterday's video was uh, friends and the dynamic behind them, and basically like pretending something never happened is not how it's supposed to be, but like realizing the dynamic that used to exist or used to work is no longer working. And today's video is random fear is basically a bad image of the future and like notes. It really feels that these notes are pre-preparing me to the current set moment in a very like fantastic way. But also I could generally be biasing myself through them, which is a video I discussed as well. Because what I do effectively is the cognitive bias that we have, like if we're always kind of like repeating an issue, we'll end up finding it everywhere. And we're repeating something that's not an issue, that's something positive, we'll end up finding it everywhere. That's how our mind kind of like works and how basically versatile, I guess, reality is because it kind of shifts based on your perspective and intention. So according to today's video, fear is basically a bad image of the future. And I think with this, I'm suggesting that the future is designed, right? And ultimately, when our mind is kind of like projecting something, keep it dropping to the side all the actions that take us away from the present because of this, because you're projecting something, you're imagining something. And maybe we can discuss how fear basically is just an incorporation of the moment's image of the future. And basically, if you don't actually have an image of the future, then maybe that's why I'm feeling the way I am right now. Because, okay, so let's revise how I first started when it came to the plan that I'm doing and the work that I'm doing. First, you get an idea and you start imagining how it will succeed. But that's kind of like a very shallow way of approaching it. I'm not saying that's not a positive way of approaching it, but it's a shallow way to approach it. Naturally, because like everything new is going to be because it doesn't already exist, the world is not really like set up in a way to accept it. And in a beautiful, harmonious way, what what you end up doing is basically kind of like figuring out all the ways that it could go wrong, or all the things that that will challenge you, or all the places where the image that you have of success is not really fitting with the current status of the world. So effectively, that idea is not really you creating it to succeed. What you're doing is you're setting up the world for it to kind of like fit and fill in that space. Or at the very least, you're creating a space for it to kind of like lay and settle. And it's also kind of funny because like what I said right now is what I said about energy earlier today, because like energy needs a place to settle. And I, this is genuinely like the duality of the world, like the balance between like things. It's always like whatever's left has to kind of find its right, whatever's left has to find its down, and magnet, polarity, and all that good, beautiful shit. That's just like the basic rules that the world basically applies to, lives by. And so when we're reflecting on the image of the idea, at first you were kind of like excited because you actually can't see anything but that like image of success, which is created from nothingness, or it's created from your past experience. But then the minute you start kind of like transposing it onto the actual like reality that's in front of you, what happens is you start discovering places where it doesn't really fit, or where even if it does fit, it might kind of be limping instead of like moving, flowing harmoniously. And these kind of like start popping out left and right, effectively kind of like reorganizing all your reality in order for it to find its best interest. Then where does fear come in? Because a lot of times we hesitate, a lot of times we kind of like take a step back. And sometimes whatever we're approaching is a bit bigger than us, maybe. And I'm not saying about the image, I'm not saying about the vision, but when we're trying to transpose this image slash vision, that image of success, which is basically our vision into this world, as we try to transpose it, some places really just kind of like don't fit, or at the very least, they're built in a way that doesn't allow them to fit. And that shows us a different image of whatever we're working on. Because ultimately, what I'm trying to say is like, this is my success. And if this is here, then it's going to look like this instead of how my success looks. And practically, what you end up doing is absorbing that visualization of that specific failure into the image of the future, which kind of creates that hesitation and creates that like resistance from you, not from anything else, from you. And then ultimately, kind of like creating that fear, because now you're no longer just like, the unknown isn't really scary. What's scary is the tentative approach into doom. And that's basically the opposing, whatever opposes success. 'Cause I don't think failure opposes success. I think success and failure are both part of the same experience. I think what opposes success, what does oppose success? So I'm under the belief that love and hate are both the same emotion. Opposing on the other spectrum of basically like the balance of love and hate is basically indifference, I guess. And on one side your energy is producing, but I think they're the same emotion, just translated differently. I don't know what's opposing it. It's probably something on the course of resentment, right? Because there are expectations from love and expectations from hate. And maybe resentment, I'll come back to it at some point. But now that I thought of it, it would kind of like stick for a while. But an image of your future that's kind of like tainted by your inability to apply it the best way you see fit. I think that creates fear. Because then, like, at first you're moving towards something that you found to be beautiful. I'm assuming beautiful because successful, right? Success is something beautiful. But once that success starts looking differently, then ultimately fear is what allows you to question if that's the direction you want to go or not, which generally means it actually gives you the chance to take a different direction because every single step you take is changing the way success looks like. And once it stops looking as success, and that's what fear kicks in because the fear kicks in from the decision you made to move in a certain direction leading to the points that make sense. And ultimately, basically, the fact that the future now has a bad image is actually creating that emotion in you. Fear is an emotion or a feeling? It's a feeling. Yeah. And ultimately it shows you the image that you wouldn't want. And at that point, like I don't know, we get to reflect naturally. I don't want to use that word as much as I do now, because like there are like a reflection in its own. It's like has a lot of depth to it. But let's just say, for the sake of it, what fear does is it highlights an image in a way where you get to realize some details or the whole lot, which doesn't really like harmonize with why you started to do this, or at the very least with what you're doing right now would end up looking like. And I think it's the perfect chance for us to kind of like revisit the way we're approaching that image of our future and change it into something that makes more sense in order for our direction to kind of like shift into something that we would see more successfully. Lovingly, happily, all that stuff. It's a video.